On your Daily Detroit, a USL Championship veteran signs with Detroit City FC. Who are the players actually from Detroit to root for during the Super Bowl? And finally, the Brian Flores bombshell allegations and lawsuit. Not only are there some local ties, but Fletcher helps unpack his real-life experiences and how he feels about it. I'm Jairus Days. It's Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. As he does every week, joining us is Fletcher Sharpe. Welcome back, sir.
Yep, thanks for having me. It's always good to talk sports to people who really want to hear it.
Yeah, and Detroit City FC has some news. Paris-born Antoine Hoppenot has been signed. He last played for Louisville City. Saw some clips. Interesting guy. What are your thoughts?
I remember watching Hoppenot when he played for FC Cincinnati a while ago. He's a career USL Championship player, so he's someone who maybe played a few games at the MLS level, but typically played most of his games in the Championship. So he's very acclimated to the style of play needed to play. The type of player he is, the metaphor I like to use, when you're at the gym and you're trying to use the machines to lift, and you hit the little switch to add an additional 10 pounds, but you don't have any other switches on, so it's just 10 pounds. It doesn't really mean much to you. But if you have 95 pounds, you hit that switch, boom, you got 110 pounds. Sorry, 105 pounds. So it's way more weight. So by himself, I think it's kind of a nice pickup, but not one that moves the metronome. But if DCFC keeps signing players that, will put the ball in the net, it'll be an excellent pickup because the type of player that Hoppenot is someone who finds spaces. Standing at 5'8", he's not terribly tall. So he gets all of his goals and all of his plays off of excellent movement, moving into open spaces to try to free up people, and just being at the right place at the right time. Very unselfish player, really great veteran who will help to mentor the younger players, and hopefully, if he feels like it, get into coaching as he did when he played for Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, and can help to teach the U21s, all the kids who want to join Le Rouge and the younger teams. So all in all, it's a good pickup on the field, but probably a better pickup off the field for the club's image.
Well, the clips I saw, he just had this knack for, now he didn't score the most goals, but the goals he did score, like you mentioned, at the right time. And it was something where it's just where'd he come from? And then boom, it's in the net. And that's a nice X factor to bring to an offense.
Definitely. One way to measure how you should feel about a player is when the team he's leaving from has a comment. And I cannot find a Louisville City fan who's good, I'm glad to see him gone. They're all dang. I was kind of hoping he could come back, hoping he'd find a team that's not in the Eastern Conference, but I'm glad he found somewhere to play. I wish him luck going forward. And when he comes back to our stadium, he'll probably get a bunch of cheers and then probably some boos 10 minutes later when he gets an angry foul and takes out one of our players. So to see how the opposing fans react to your player lets you know whether you made a good pick or not. And all the Louisville City fans being sad that he's gone lets you know you picked up a quality guy. So I have no problem with that.
Do you think there's still a few more pickups to go, though?
Oh, definitely. Currently, they only have 12 players. You need at least 20 to start. So we're getting to the point where they're starting to pick up some new players now. We have not seen any real re-signings in the last two picks, so we can kind of speculate there'll be some names we might have seen at a different level, but probably were not DCFC players last year or recently. So yeah, we should be surprised and be waiting around noon every single day when the Twitter handle releases these players' names.
All right, everyone's talking about Matt Stafford, and man, I don't even want to get into those Detroit Rams jerseys. I can't with that. But there are two players from Detroit in the Super Bowl, Fletcher. I'd love to know the details on the players that are actually from here. Matthew Stafford played here, but he's not from here. These couple of guys, they're from here.
If you are looking for a team to root with no rooting interest, and you like me, and you like to typically pick people from home, you've been rooting for the Bengals, as Khalid Kareem and Darius Phillips are two players for the Bengals. Unfortunately, Darius Phillips is on IR, so he would not actually be playing, but he would be eligible for a ring if they win. Khalid Kareem, defensive end, went to high school at the now defunct Farmington Hills Harrison, and Darius Phillips, cornerback, went to Robichaud High School before going to Western Michigan. So two native-born sons playing for a team down south. So if you're looking for a team to root for, like me, I'm gonna probably root for the Bengals just because I'd like to see people from Detroit win. That's really it for me. More people from Detroit winning means more people from Detroit get a chance to win. So,
Do you have a pick on a winner for the big game? I know we normally wouldn't do this, but it is, well, the Super Bowl.
I'm going to pick the Bengals just because I've said my reasons why, but I don't really have a reason for it outside of just wanting people from Detroit to win. I like Joe Burrow. He's a stand-up guy. He says what he means, and he's put the right foot forward so far. First quarterback taken first overall to get the Super Bowl in the first 2 years of his career, which is something that's obviously never been done before. But the way that he's done it and been a leader for a pretty veteran-laden team is kind of shocking in itself. So, yeah, I prefer that the Bengals win over the Rams, and I know a lot of fans would be a little bit upset because they really want Stafford to get his ring. But I have a little fun fact for them. Stafford's no longer a Lions player, so it doesn't really matter whether he gets a ring or not. The Lions aren't going to get a ring if he gets a ring. So, whatever.
All right, finally, some news broke last week. This whole Brian Flores lawsuit, some of it actually tangentially and somewhat directly connects to the Lions. It's about the Rooney Rule, the idea that in the NFL, for the uninitiated, in the NFL, you must interview basically a black candidate for head coaching jobs. It's a requirement before you select someone. However, in recent years, it's kind of become almost, I hate to say this, but almost a joke where it's like everyone just selects who they're going to select anyway, and then they just kind of do these show interviews. And one of the things that this lawsuit, among other things, has brought out is the idea that it may not be good to do fake interviews. The Rooney Rule may not do what it is intended to do. Now, there's also another part that's locally connected with an allegation that Detroit-born billionaire Stephen Ross, he's also doing the District Detroit project with the University of Michigan. He's big at the University of Michigan, wanted to influence games so that they would tank. Directly tanking, I mean, it's talked about in sports media a lot, but it's not something that really happens that often. I want to focus on this really quick. There's a couple of those Detroit tangents, but also this speaks to a greater problem in sports, pro sports, any level really, where, and I've seen it over the years, over the last 20 years, I started doing a lot of sports stuff many years ago, that, it's not an even playing field at all. If you look at the end results of head coaching jobs, not just in the NFL, but frankly, in a lot of sports, when you talk about positions of power, ownership, all that, even sometimes, honestly, you and I, Fletcher, we've been to media boxes, and they're mighty white, and the players on the field are mostly black, and it's something you can't help but notice, that like stark difference.
I mean, my two examples aren't journalism based, although I will concur that typically when I step into sports press boxes, it's kind of like a sheet of paper with like a few black pen marks on it, typically. And I've just learned to be okay with it because usually that's not going to be the case unless you're covering an HBCU event or some event where it's a majority black event. So media there is typically black.
You've been to a lot more sporting events than I have, obviously, and more press boxes.
Yeah, the two things I have that stick out in my mind the most when I'm thinking about sports, mainly football, but sports and race relations. My junior varsity year playing football, the coach had me and another kid who were very similar in the way we played, and he decided to put me at free safety and the other kid at quarterback because the other kid acted more like a quarterback than I did, which I don't really know what that means, but whatever. So we had a game where that kid threw 3 interceptions, and the coach held on to him for the entire first half because he's like, well, he's our guy. And the kid was like, I don't want to be in the game anymore. Can we switch, please? I want to go to free safety. I'm not having a great game. The coach was like, well, that's not what a leader says. And I was like, all right, man. And the kid's like, put him in, please. Coach put me in. I led us almost back to victory. Unfortunately, it was a game where I suffered a huge concussion, which is why we did not win, because I started thinking the other team was my team, and
oh no,
you're not going to win a game like that. And the other instance I had, my senior year, same high school, the starting quarterback now went to go play at Michigan, something else. He was suspended for the first 3 games for academic issues. So I was the backup quarterback, And over the course of 5 practices, I made maybe 2 or 3 mistakes, maybe 1 or 2 bad reads, maybe 1 errant throw. But overall, I had a pretty solid week of practice. Our first game was against Detroit Renaissance, and I was told 2 days before the game, coach is going to go with a kid who'd never played quarterback before in his life. Never, ever in his life. Did not want to play quarterback, but just because this kid showed the grit and toughness to lead a team. And I was like, what? But did he show the arm strength? Because it doesn't matter. He knows he's a proven winner. And I'm like, you met all of us literally 4 months ago. How do you know he's a proven winner when you have not played a game at all? So I don't need to bring race into it because you can probably infer from my tone what the race of the other 2 players were. It's just instances where you have an athlete or a coach of one ethnicity and one of another, and it seems very funny that one of those has to prove himself by being way better than the other to even get a fair shot. And honestly, it's so tiresome just to even see and just even to speak about. And I'm glad that Brian Flores is doing this. I know the Detroit instance that we had was when Jim Caldwell was fired. Harold Austin came in for an interview, Bob Quinn, knowing full well they were not going to hire him. And obviously they did not, with them going with Matt Patricia, which was a terrible, terrible hire. Terrell Austin's still a defensive coordinator in the NFL, leading some great defenses. So yeah, it's. I know a lot of people are complaining. I just want the best. I just want the best guy to have the job. I don't care about race. Give me the best. And sometimes, sometimes the best guy is, one race. Sometimes he's another race. But the problem that we're having here is that one of those guys doesn't get a fair shot. It's you're coming in with the Rooney Rule just to satisfy a need. And what happened with Brian Flores is while he was on his way to the first interview with the Miami Dolphins, he got a text from Patriots head coach Bill Belichick congratulating him on getting the job. The text was meant for another person, Brian Dabble, who is white, who they'd already promised a job to.
I'm going to talk about one thing here because I have heard this. We're just going to hire the best. And I think what people don't realize is the institutional things that make certain people think that white people are always the best. And I've seen it in corporate meetings. I've seen it, in relations to sports. I've seen it in relations to lots of things where there is a default by many people that when they say it's the best, something in their brain always tells them that the white person is better than the black person. And they don't want to admit it and they don't want to talk about it. But the actions and the list, like when you see a company that, everybody there's no people of color, there's no people of different diversities, there's no people of different sexual orientations, like there's absolutely nothing. You realize that over time, they've surrounded themselves only with people like themselves. And so there's like an institutional thing that pushes this forward. And I've seen it in lots of different areas. And I think what gets people so fired up about this Flores situation is that people don't like to be shown something they don't want to believe. People don't want to believe that they are racist, but that's the outcome. And so we have to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's not even like the malicious racist where it's like, we're going to put crosses on people's lawns and put on white sheets over our faces. It's the ignorant type of like, I didn't know that this was a racist thing. This is just what I always believed. I had a former friend who literally thought that black people had an extra tendon in their leg. It's why they could jump higher. And did not realize how racist it was until I pulled up a Google image of a leg and showed him there's no extra tendon in this person's leg. And this is a black person. And he's like, I just thought that was a real thing. I'm sorry. That was an ignorant thing that it came out of my mouth and I apologize. And a lot of people don't like being told that they're ignorant, that they don't know something, especially when it's something as delicate as race, because they can go very south very quickly. So yeah, it's I don't know when it's going to be fixed. I hope that this Flores lawsuit does something, even if he doesn't win. I hope it shows the ugliness that occurs in not just the NFL, but almost every professional sport in this country. But being a black person in this country, I don't know if that's actually going to be fixed anytime soon. So I'm not going to hold my breath, but I will be pleasantly surprised if he does win this lawsuit.
Well, I think it's about the arc of progress and arc of justice. And it as Barack Obama said, it bends slowly. And I think the reason why you have so many of these issues and it's going to be so hard to have a rule that fixes it is because the fix is deeper than the NFL. The fix is deeper than any particular company. The fix is rooted in how we were founded and our culture. And I know that some listeners are going to like it, but like, as somebody who studied a lot of American history and a lot of revolutions, and America continues to have a lot of issues with race, and you need to work with intention to get through them. Otherwise, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, and I mean, that's honestly all people. No one wants one race to be better than the other. No one, well, a few people do, but I'm not really speaking to them. No one's like, I want all black people to be better than white, or white be better than black, or Asian be better than both, or Arabic be better. It's like we all just want an equal chance to succeed. And if I'm on the same level playing field as someone else next to me with identical stats, and they beat me out at the job, to coach, or to be the head chef, or to be the best valet person, or to be president of the, okay, you know what, then that's fine. But very typically there's someone starting from one position, someone starting from a different position, and then being called fair. And like, that's not okay. And hopefully this suit can help us put that to bed so we can move forward, and hopefully from the same starting line.
And maybe this is too much, but I encourage people, and I try to, and I know I'm not perfect, but I always try to think about things and take a beat. Why am I making this decision? Am I missing something? Am I not really realizing something culturally? Like, it's just taking a beat and trying to be more mindful so that you can try to make a better place. I mean, is that crazy, Fletcher? Am I off base?
I mean, no, but I can think of some people who will not like hearing that at all. So,
well, I mean, it's from the heart though, right? Like, I don't say that to inflame. Neither one of us are the kind of people who are like, let's just throw bombs all day. Like, that's a from the heart feeling. As somebody who, I grew up with a lot of, different kinds of people in my family, seeing things firsthand about what they experienced in the same places that I went, it became very clear to me, that things are different. And so if once you know that, there is incumbency upon you to try to act and try to do better.
There really is. And it leads back to your point before about where people typically get snagged up, is them seeing, oh, what I used to do, what I've done for my entire life is not the right way. It's actually wrong. It's actually offensive. No, I'm not going to change it. It's the reason why we have people still fighting about Civil War statues down south and the Confederate flag, because it's like, this is just my flag for my own family, and we all had this flag, and it's ours, and these statues are people we looked up to, and you won't be able to tell me that they're wrong because this is what I've been taught. And just, you have to try to break through that dense, very dense shell together and be like, hey, man, we're not saying you're bad for growing up in this, but like, there's a chance to change it. We're saying you're bad for realizing this probably is not good and still being like, I don't care.
One of the joys of journalism in general and looking at the media and responsibilities, but I also look at it as a joy. It's the idea that when you learn new information, you grow, that it's okay that you thought one thing, but now you know better and you learn something and then you move forward. And I think that growth is pretty awesome. And so that's one of the reasons why I try to like put my arms open around things. And I think that's kind of the joy of being a human. It's growth.
I wish everyone had to live their life as if they were a journalist, because when you get new information, you have to fix it. But that's not how the world is, unfortunately. So some people can still think things that are factually wrong and then dig into a hole to avoid having to confront it.
I think one of the challenges that a lot of journalists and people who are trying to tell accurate stories, whatever you call them, media personalities, whatever, the challenge is that in a world that values loyalty and tribalism, sometimes the facts of a situation mean that it's not the same thing that you want to hear. And I think what we need to do is make sure that we get in things where it's like, okay, these are the facts of the situation. Let's move forward, as opposed to doubling down. But I know that's not human nature, and that's hard to do. And that's a big ask. But I know that our listeners can do that, right? Like, I know that even if you're willing to hit play on something like what we're doing, that you're willing to stop a beat and say, hey, maybe I learned something here. And I'm not saying to ask to change a huge core thing, but every once in a while, I'll be like, is there something new I could do? Is there some new way that I could grow? And I know that's extra work and I know that's hard, but I also know that's how we get to a better place.
Yeah, we have really smart listeners who understand that the world will change. So I'm sure this is not really a task for them, but hopefully there's someone who's not a typical listener hearing this and decides to uptake this as a daily thing to do.
All right, Fletcher Sharpe, thank you so much for your time today on this. I'm looking forward to going through the rest of the signings as we ramp up to the season. I'm excited about the season in general. In fact, working on a way to do a road game or two, which would be a ton of fun. If you're a listener and you're interested in something like that, shoot me a mail. Of course, if you got feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Fletcher Sharpe, always a pleasure.
Of course, I'm always glad to talk about sports and the occasional real thing.
And we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you find what we do at Daily Detroit valuable, consider sharing the show with a friend. I'm Jared Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll talk tomorrow.